So here's what happened. I couldn't upload another video because my phone died. So I decided to charge it, but I ran out of Freon after I got it to leak all over the place. So I had two of these. They're supposed to be for 134, and I know I could play with the screw, and it says do not adjust screw. Your warranty will be void. Not that I care about that, but I realized I had this guy in, and I wasn't getting a proper high side reading. And this was sucking down to 0, of course, or whatever, negative whatever. It was hitting the needle, and this was staying at 30 when I was vacuuming it. But it wasn't all the way, and I'm like, what's going on here, And it ends up being I forgot to tighten these two. And when I shut off the car after I got it charged, first of all, I have issues with getting no power and no ground. So I'm testing it over here, and it ends up being I ended up putting the old switch in, and then that worked. So that's one problem I had to play with. So I got to take out this pin, if anything. And then what happens is once I changed this, it all started it was coming out of here because the valve was leaking on me. I didn't change the valve, and this was leaking. So I tightened this, still hear it leak. I go and I take this valve out, and it sprays all over the place, and then I hurried up, put it back in. It was a god-awful mess. And but it was blowing ice cold. But I have to have moisture in here because I didn't suck it down properly. Like I said, when I was mocking this all up, I never tightened these two. So I'd have to, in order to use this, because see, it has a gook on the threads. They do this deliberately, and I wanted to put this so I have another room for a switch, because I may have to change up a switch. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm debating what to do right now at this point. Because the way they do it on this car it was a one prong switch, and you can't find them anymore, and they all cross to this switch that's in there, and it's not working right. And I think I put the same switch on my other car, and I had the problem, and I ended up just grounding the wire, because this is down to the ground. That's all it was. So the low side controls the low switch, and this thing, if it went too high, it would shut it off electrically on the ground side, which is kind of smart. But basically, you put the switch now. What most cars had it later on was a high side switch in the high side thing, like another one, like if I put one over there, but that was hooked up within the low pressure switch, so it just turns off the power either way. Any break in the system, and it wouldn't work. So I might be able to put an aftermarket switch in there. Not 100% sure. It depends what I can do with that. But I never ended up getting another, fill valve here, and I'm kind of regretting it now because I had it. I just had to have the guy weld it in. But I was like, I don't need it, So in order to use this, you got to pull out the pin out of that, and then you're relying on the threads being, gooped up. But it was weird, like the rubber that was in here, like I don't know if this was an old valve that was sitting, but it all ended up inside the hole here, maybe because the pin kind of messed it up because it wasn't supposed to be a pin in there. Not 100% sure. Debating whether or not I'll use this. And like it actually kind of chewed up the threads just a little bit. Doesn't look too bad when I look in the camera. So and I got to get an adapter for this because when you unscrew it, a lot of Freon comes out when you're trying to swap it out with R12. When I use the R12 hose on the 134, and then I just have the adapters. Yeah, so this is something I got to think through. I'm upset that the new switch didn't work, but what happens when I put the switch in, it was cutting on an awful lot because it really didn't want to go over 30 pounds on the low side. And I think it has something to do with it being leaking. And then I ran out because I was down to the end of this because it was from last season. I only had so much left. I had enough to fill the car, but then all this shit happened, So I'm debating what to do now with this whole thing. If I put something in line with the circuit, I know where to put it. Not 100% sure yet what I'm going to do, It would be nice if I got... This is like a really high quality one, but I don't like that it doesn't hit the pin on its own. I guess that's kind of all you get, with this type of stuff. But this is another 3/16 line here. It's not 1/4 inch. So not sure if the newer GM switches are 3/16 as opposed to a quarter like this is. And I have another high pressure switch, like an aftermarket one, so I'd have to make, it's possible it's 1/4 inch, and I have to get something else that will depress that and give me a couple of extra, things, because I bought several things for this car, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to settle on something. I think this is like a BMW or foreign car thing. I want to use it on this, and a lot of these guys they're like binary switches. Well, this came. That switch. I'm not sure if it's binary. I think it's just low side. I don't like that they put a high side and a low side switch together. I don't know how that makes sense. I'd rather have the two separate switches. I'm almost beginning to think that I have to go back and see what I bought, because now I'm wondering if it was supposed to be on the high side. But they have these adapters here to put in the receiver dryer over there. So I have it somewhere, and I may just use it on that other car. Here it is. So I believe this is the high side, but you see, I believe this is just a 1/8. Yeah, this is 1/8 pipe. But again, they have these adapters here, and this adapter goes from 1/8 pipe to the quarter. Not 100% sure. I believe this is the 1/8 pipe as well. I don't know about this rubber O-ring. Rather put a copper washer where it goes up against it. But I believe this is the low pressure one. This guy should be high pressure. I believe red would be, the red mark there should be high pressure. You would think. Didn't quite look at the other one to see. Because I actually want the high pressure to not only shut off the compressor, I want it to shut off the fan, or to turn on the fan, I should say. So I wanted, see, they might actually be identical. They may both be binary switches. I can't remember. I got to find out what I bought. I really don't remember, because I didn't like what I was buying, and then I bought more of those other switches, the GM switches, which I really didn't think I'd have a problem. I put both of them in, they both didn't turn on. Like, it should be instantly turning them on. I don't know why, why a tiny bit of pressure would be all you need. And then I had the wrong O-ring there, so that's why it was leaking. It was rolling it out of this, So it seems hard to believe just turning that screw is going to make a difference, but I mean, how much pressure is this going to make it turn on? That's what I don't understand. So it's very, very odd, Not quite sure why everything is the way it is. Normally that kind of switch would be over here, so maybe because it's going through the thing, and there's the what do you call it? The orifice tube is in there, But otherwise, everything else doesn't seem like it's leaking. What else? Yeah, so if I put a high pressure switch, I don't know how this one actually works. Like, I don't know if it'll work if you put power through it instead. Like, if I just leave this grounded and then put that into the compressor side, for some reason, like, it will only jump when it's power, because it actually acts kind of like a switch that turns it on, and you can't run it as a ground. That's the only thing I can think of. So I'm going to probably put power to it and see if it'll show that it's grounded. But it's completed, but it doesn't make sense to me, So I don't know if when you put the key on, you put the AC compressor on, will it show that it's working in that sense? So it's a little bit deflating, when you do this. But I believe I did something like this on the other car, because this was the only switch I can get. And there's another switch. There's a Chrysler switch that should fit. There's a couple other switches out there, and this is the one that the actual GM website shows. So I was just a little bummed with that. Like, I don't understand how they can't get certain things right, But because I wholeheartedly try to put everything new, and then shit don't work, and it's a different thing, Like, and you can't buy that other switch, and it looks very close to an A6 switch, which just has a single pin. Where this one had the single pin, but it looked like it's the same plug as the radiator fan switches in the 80s as well. This car doesn't have that kind of switch. It's because that turns on at a higher temperature, and this one turns on a lower temperature. But when I was running it, I had jumped the switch over there, this new switch. When I jumped each one, I got both sides of the fan to go, the low and the high, and it sounds nice and quiet actually compared to my old fan. And the plug just went, and when I plugged it in, it went click. You could hear it. So that was the other problem I had. I had to have a zip tie holding it on. So if I let this all out, I'm going to double check to make sure I actually put the O-rings in here. I'd have a hard time believing that there's not an O-ring if it, see, as soon as I loosen that. So it's holding something now that I tightened it actually. So I think I'll be okay. But that's pretty much it to get this car off the ground. I got to wait for that, the Prindle switch or the range sensor or whatever you want to call it, and I gotta put the master cylinder in. I got one clip that holds the what do you call it, speedometer cable. I'm gonna put this guy in today. I might try to put the wiper motor in. Not sure if I'll bother. It's not important right now. There's just so much shit I gotta get done. I got toolboxes coming. I gotta get this place clean. I gotta work on this car, and yeah, get a few things going on. And I'm waiting for parts. So, but the AC is gonna work in this car. I gotta get a new 30-pounder. Like I said, I might just let everything out because it was really pissing out a lot. So I feel funny that I charged the whole thing with it leaking, and I had it running. The diesel's making so much noise. I wouldn't be able to hear if it was leaking, but I didn't hear it leaking. And when I shut off the engine, when it equalized, it was holding 30 pounds, but it wasn't holding, whatever it equalized to, like the 60 pounds or something like that when the car is off. Then all of a sudden it started leaking out. I was like, oh no. But this is all good news though. Everything is working pretty well, I think, so far so good. So I'll make another video probably when this car is out of the garage. I don't know if I'm going to bother. Yeah, I'm going to try to do something with a switch. Whether I use this or not, I'm not sure. Because I may have to get something that's like this that goes 3/16 to a quarter over here. That way I can use one of those other switches. Or this switch. No, that's a low pressure switch though. I'd have to get a high pressure switch. Unless it is a high pressure switch and I didn't even know it. But no, this high pressure switch should be always contacting. That's why I don't understand why I got nothing with a decent amount of pressure in there. At first I thought it was because the gas was leaking out of the O-ring and everything. I'm like, okay, maybe it didn't build enough pressure, but after all is said and done, I still couldn't get anything to work to turn on until I changed the switch. And the high side switches in the back of the compressor, it works on different principles, obviously. But I think I'm going to try to run power through it and see if that changes something, because maybe it's kind of like a mini micro switch in the side that it's self-grounded and it needs power to turn on in order to turn it off when pressure gets high. And you can't just run a ground through it. It doesn't loop that way. So then I would have to run it through the positive line going to the thing. Or if I run a positive line to it, I can use a relay to go to the ground, to turn on the ground. I'd actually prefer to do that, more than a direct line into the thing, because it's just small wire that goes through there. I just have a hard time believing, if I bottleneck the compressor line, it's a relatively fat line here, and I know a lot of these new cars they usually use computer, sensory, so it doesn't need much. So I was even skeptical. I'm like, damn, I hate to use this because the ground is so much thicker, and I feel like I'm holding back the ground even, So if I can put the ground more permanent, or run the ground through with thicker wire through a a relay, I think that would be the best bet. And we can use a low power thing to turn on something that's high power, and then I could steal power just to turn on the relay from the compressor circuit, so that it's still going on with the power, at the same time you turn the switch on. But it could be technically powered all the time. I think, or power with the key on, but I'll see. You know, these are some minor things, you know, but so far so good. It's not really that big of a deal, you know. I kind of expected problems, but I should have put a separate charging thing there. It would have made much more sense for me to do that. I mean, technically, it's still, I can just unscrew it and bring it to the guy and have him TIG weld it. I just bought a TIG welder too, so I don't know what I'm doing with it. I hate to practice on my own goddamn car, because I'm probably not capable of, you know, doing that kind of weld. So I may just have him, you know, do that for me. I have the piece, yeah, right here. This is a welded piece, and that way, if I do this, you know, here, like the original one has, I worry about the hood also being in a certain place. But you know, even if I just did it like here, let's say, you know, I can weld this in, use this. This is where the original one was. It was just a little bit of ways. It was like right here, you know. But I feel funny if this ends up being a little bit higher. I know it's not too high, and I can technically loosen this and adjust it down just a hair. Still, it's a little bit harder because but this bracket will bend, you know. But if I put it over here, it may be a little bit better thing to do. So if I do that, it might be a plan, you know, just to get it over with, you know, and do it right with one of these guys. And then I can actually just buy a switch from that, a more modern switch, and then run it through the positive thing, which has a different plug, which might be a higher amperage plug. And I can do the same thing also. Like I can run the power, I can cut the power, I can cut the ground if I use a relay. So I have a feeling this is going to work though if I run power through it. And that's my feeling. And if that works using that switch, then I can just use that for charging, and then I can just get the adapter that goes over it. Goes over, you know, the GM adapter goes over the 3/16 high side to put that on. I'll get, you know, I get the kit. It comes with the 3 of them. One goes for the 1/4 inch. There's another one for the high side for the 1/4 inch, but I got a 3/16, which is GM style, and then I'll put it right there and charge it there. That was my intention. And then you have the, you know, the 2 hoses end up being right here. You know, I have the high side here, the low side here, you know, and, you know, you deal with it that way, you know. But in the original car, I should actually look it up because the 85 didn't have this. This is really, this is the replacement line for the 85, which impossible to find, and I found it like a few years ago. I just never put it in. I could have made, now I realize I could have made this line with now what I know and what I bought for the other car and whatnot. But it's nice that it's all bent already and everything's set. That being said, I can get probably the switch from like an 86, because I think the line is really 86 and up, or if it was a gas car, then it would have a switch here, the high pressure switch. You know, this car used the high pressure switch in there for the ground, which is weird, but I can probably use that switch then for the exact same thing with that switch and just run the wires back instead of using the switch that's on there, you know. Or I can just, like I said, have it to open up a turn on a relay, you know, one way or the other. But I'm gonna try that one. I want to see if that works. So that's it. I'll stop babbling, and hopefully I'll have this. You'll see the side of the car, and I'll make a video of me moving everything and cleaning things up. It looks looks like a huge feat, but this car is not going anywhere. But I want to clean from underneath it. I'm trying to have a space for everything. Maybe throw out a bunch of shit I don't need, and, you know, put a bunch of things up for sale that I don't need anymore. Which you always find shit like, oh yeah, I sold that car. I don't need that part, you know. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Don't know when my next video will be, but we'll see.